Keep it alive through these lines I write. I keep it live cause I thrive. I might just blow your mind tonight. I'm so hyped, but it's no hype. From this height, it's direct hits on sight. I'm your type, lend me your ears to show you that there's something in me. I'm not giving up, I'm standing right here, holding these days hostage. And I'll make this my year. We turning fear into love, and the love's in the air. I love doing this cause nothing compares. Nothing can share that same type of feeling when you feeling them flares. They can't catch it, it's havoc. I rip to a tear, switch a scenario on stereos, I leave them impaired. Variables start to change and they're all in my range. I just gotta grab it, it's all mathematics. Every step is drastic, I make it fantastic. I'm trying to take your breath away. Asthmatic.
This is live through the stereo. Go and let it blow, blow through the stereo. I'ma let them know through the stereo. Yo, here we go through the stereo, stereo. This is live through the stereo. Go and let it blow, blow through the stereo. I'ma let them know through the stereo. Yo, here we go through the stereo, stereo.
Yeah, just nod your head with it, so explicit and vivid. Every image is intricate, intimate. I put my all into it, no scrimmage and no rules. I'm a pro tool, hear my heartbeat, beat into the vocals. I'm so loco, lost my mind, oh no. It's ponderoso, dope, so no overdose, cause it's dope, yo. Man, this is house grown, mixed with some milestones. So I let the style flow down like the Dow Jones, bringing it with some foul tones, letting the crowd know we getting loud, so it's eardrum rudiments. Yeah, we bring it rude again. Move, little hooligan. Music for tuning in, full time to the 10. I'm on my clock like I told you. I'm doing this for dreams we pursuing.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Anti-Media Radio Show. Once again with your host, Nick Bernabe, here on UCY.TV. Thank you all for tuning in, and I'm really happy to be back with you here on this awesome Wednesday. So many things going on once again in the world. It's a crazy world out there, right? But we're here on the Anti-Media Radio 5 days a week to decode this nonsense that's going on and this crap that's being spewed out from the media and this empire. We're here to interpret what's going on, and of course you don't have to take our word for it. You know, go out there and do your own research, because that's what it's all about. You know, that's what this whole movement is about. It's about people not taking what other, you know, what may be seen as authority figures in the media or whatever tell you what to think. We don't want to tell anyone what to think. We want people to go out there and research, but we're here to help you. We're doing a bunch of research on our own. We've got a bunch of 20 journalists on our team that are constantly researching, constantly writing what's going on, including myself and including my awesome co-host who's actually in studio with me tonight, D.B. Schwartz. What's up, man?
What's up, brother?
Glad to have you back.
Hey, I'm glad to be back. It was great to, get out of the cold weather. Went to the beach today, kind of forgot what the ocean looked like and what actual fish tacos taste like. And it was nice to have a Mexican beer, because those aren't easy to find either. And just happy to be back, man. I realized how much I missed this place, although I do like Minnesota as well.
Whole different world out there, isn't it?
It is, man. I was thinking to myself to be a Bi-City guy probably after this. Not in the way you guys are probably thinking either.
There you go, man. Now, I'm glad to hear it. You said that you may start coming back to San Diego to live out the winter.
Yeah.
And deal with our 60, 70 degree days out here in the winter time.
It's tough, dude. I can't handle it. Yeah, I mean, it just makes sense. And actually, I think a lot of people, if you really research into it, if you can do it, and you have a primary residence in a cheaper state, go for it. If you can make it work. Taxes out here kill.
Yeah, that's the thing that sucks. And you know what? Tax day is coming up. We've got our second promo meme goes up on the page in 35 minutes. It's about the taxes. Our intro meme tonight was about how, if we emptied out all the prisons of the pot smokers, we can make room for all the real criminals, which, Hillary Clinton comes to the top of mind. And in the meme, there's a picture of all these presidents. I mean, think of what Bill Clinton did, Bush, Obama, kill lists. There was an article today on the Anti-Media about these kill lists. Did you see that one?
No.
There's a guy from Pakistan who found himself on a kill list. This guy's already survived. He's already survived 4 drone strikes against him, and they've miscued. And this is something that we found out relatively recently, is that a lot of these drone strikes are inaccurate, and 90% of the people that are killed in drone strikes aren't even the targets. And so this is exactly what's been going on with this guy. He's been on a kill list for a couple of years. They've tried to blow him up 4 times, but all 4 times they missed. Like one time he was in a car and the car behind him got hit by a missile. One time he was on the way to his friend's house to have dinner, and as he was about to walk, he was like walking up to the house, and the house blows up. I mean, this is horrible. Yeah, the guy's name is Malik Jalil. He had a opinion piece over in, I think it was on the Independent over in the UK. But he's like basically just pleading with the UK government to say, hey, get your American buddies in check.
Yeah.
Tell them to stop trying to kill me. And this guy, he's not a terrorist. He's actually a peacemaker. He tries to make peace. He's an intermediary. And he tries to make peace between the various tribal factions over there in the Waziristan area of Pakistan, which is pretty much on the border between Afghanistan and Pakistan. This is where this is like the homeland of the Taliban, more or less. And so this guy is out there trying to make peace between the Taliban and the government, and the U.S. is trying to get him killed. And so it kind of goes to show. I mean, this is one of the people that will help stem terrorism, and the U.S. is trying to kill him. You know, so that kind of goes to show the true intentions of the war on terror.
I mean, these are the kind of algorithm-based punishment programs that are being developed now with Trump's wet dream of taking out people's families just for having association via drone. And just the collateral damage is already completely asinine. And how many people died trying to kill a guy that wasn't supposed to be killed? Like 20, 30, 40 people at least?
Yeah, 4 drone strikes. I mean, who knows how many people have died trying to kill this guy? He's not even a terrorist. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's just ridiculous.
And one of the things we found out recently, due to some leaks and some investigations, was that, like, in fact, I think it was from some of the Snowden leaks, was that one of the guys that wound up on a U.S. kill list, a Pakistani guy, he was a journalist for Al Jazeera, and the reason why he wound up on a kill list was because he frequently visited areas where terrorism was taking place. But he was a reporter. He was going there to report on the terrorist acts, and he wound up on a kill list. And you know, so
no human decisions is what it looks like to me. Like it's that the thing we feared, which is AI, is probably being used simply for pragmatic reasons, in that if you have an electrical component that's shielded by a lead casing to make it immune to EMF attacks, it doesn't receive radio transmissions, therefore it has to be AI. So these new generation drones, they're all AI. That's what's the scary thing. They're just following algorithms and just shooting hellfires.
Yeah, and you know, they use metadata, and they plug the phone's metadata into an algorithm. And you know, this is the stuff of conspiracy theories. This is the stuff of science fiction, but it's completely true. They plug the metadata from your phone or from whoever's phone is on a suspected terror watch list. They plug that into an algorithm, and the algorithm decides, hey, yeah, this person, judging by our algorithm and our calculations, based on this computer, this person's a terrorist. Put them on the watch list and let the drone bomb them as soon as they find them.
Yeah.
Not good. And anyone with a smartphone is pretty much, you know, when this technology comes home, and you know, sooner or later it probably will. Anyone with a smartphone is vulnerable, man, and that's why, you know, even if it's this guy in Pakistan who you know, nobody really gives a shit about because it's just some guy in Pakistan. You know, people in America notoriously don't give a shit about people on the other side of the world. I guess, except for when these kind of things happen in Paris or in Brussels, then all of a sudden we care. But you know, even if it's a guy in Pakistan, we need to be wary of this technology, because sooner or later, just like all that equipment that was built for the war in Iraq, the MRAPs and all that came home.
Yeah, it comes home.
The NSA, it was built to, you know, surveil world governments and world terror organizations. All that shit got turned back against us. You know, weaponized drones, it's now becoming a reality. I mean, what was it, Connecticut or New Jersey? One of those little states up in the Northeast.
South Dakota, actually.
Well, South Dakota also already passed legislation saying, yeah, you know, we can arm the police drones with less than lethal technology. But I think the latest state, I believe it was Connecticut, is also trying to push through this kind of stuff. So I mean, this stuff is already coming home. So we gotta, you know, even if it's some guy in Pakistan, we gotta stand up and say, you know what, this shit is not right. We don't want a computer program. We don't want some autonomous drone bombing people overseas because they fit into an algorithmic equation that says they're a terrorist. This guy is not a terrorist.
And it won't stop there. I mean, they're going to turn it inwards again, though. You know how they'll pilot it here will be like, there'll be no-go zones where ISIS is inside of them, controlling them, because we've allowed all these cells in. And you can follow any narrative and see how they're going to use drones autonomously against us. And they're going to develop something like, I don't know, a Gauss cannon that fires some very, very tiny millimeter high projectile without the hellfire collateral damage, and they'll just start assassinating people. And they'll shoot them with something that's pencil thin, and it'll look like they had a heart attack. I mean, it's at that sci-fi level.
Yeah, I mean, the science fiction stuff is becoming reality. I was just talking with one of our writers today about how a lot of these dystopian novels really predicted what's going on today, and I just got finished reading Fahrenheit 451. It was my first time reading it, and I read 1984 several years ago, and I haven't fully read The Brave New World yet, but I've come to the conclusion that we're living in a dystopian, a matrix of those three dystopians. You got the brutal, the heavy, the boot on your throat, like Orwell predicted in 1984. You got the pharmacological dumbing down and hypnosis of The Brave New World, and then you got the censorship and the reality TV stuff that went on in Fahrenheit 451. I mean, it's all kind of mashed up together to bring us into this really dystopian world now, where the world is dominated by the U.S. empire, and the people in this country are so damn apathetic to it that we blow up a hospital in Afghanistan, nobody even gives a shit.
Yeah.
But ISIS takes credit for someone dying, for some people dying in Paris, and it's like, oh my God, now we got to care. It's like people are manufactured into this consent. Their emotions are manufactured now by the mass media. Like no one gives a shit if 1 million people die in Iraq thanks to the U.S. empire over the past 2 decades. The estimates range from 1 million to 4 million. No one really knows how much it's been. Nobody gives a shit. 100 people die in Paris, and it's like, oh my God, we all got to change our profile pictures because now we care. Because the media told you to. I mean, that's just ridiculous.
I think Yemen has crossed 250,000, and you're talking about a country of like 4 million. So, I mean, can you imagine that kind of ratio of casualties? It's unheard of. This proxy war threatens to basically break out of its national boundaries very, very quickly here. I mean, when you see Russia pull back the army out of Syria and put it on Turkey's doorstep, we know they're not doing a maneuver of that caliber where you're talking about basically probably billions of dollars of expense to move them from inside of Syria to the border of Turkey. They're going to use those troops. They're just waiting for things to pop off, and we'll see how far NATO goes. This is the play. This is where it starts. The craziest thing about it, though, is if the right person gets into our government, Hillary, will include Iran into that whole mess, and that's where it will have the potential to become a world war. Because if the Strait of Hormuz gets, shut off and we lose 20% of the oil supply overnight, I mean, our economy will be like shot. So we're kind of on that doorstep. I think the people like the Rockefeller Foundation selling off all their fossil fuel funds and divestments kind of points to the way they think the world's going to kind of go up in flames here, so to speak, and oil and gas are going to be, basically shut down.
Well, there's some encouraging signs, and we've got a couple of guests tonight on the show. We've got a journalist, activist, artist going to be joining us about hour to talk about the Democracy Spring, and that's kind of goes into the topic I want to talk about next. Because it's not all bad news. I mean, there's some good things happening that I want to really dig into here. So 1:30 we're going to talk about the Democracy Spring and what's going on with that. That's the march in D.C. You may not have heard about it because the media has been completely ignoring it. But like 500 people have been arrested over there in the past 2-3 days. The jails in D.C. have literally filled to capacity at this point. They can't even arrest people anymore because the jails are all full. They're just like busing people out at this point. But there's definitely a consciousness rising around the world right now. Whether in France with, they had like 120,000 people on the streets in France, up there protesting against this nationalistic fervor that's rising. There's definitely a two separate movements rising right now, but the thing is that both of them are being caused by similar issues. And so, you've got the nationalistic right-wing type of uprising that's going on In the United States, it's with Trump and his supporters, and that's, this is obvious what's going on. And the same thing is going on in Europe as well. The U.S. is not alone in this kind of, I wouldn't go as far as calling it completely fascism, but it's very much a right-wing nationalistic type of fervor that's going on in France, in Spain, in Germany, in the United States, in the UK. It's rising. And people are the reason that it's happening, and we've talked about this plenty of times on the show, is that people are wondering what the hell went wrong. People are like, why is our economy so shitty? Why are all these people leaving their homelands and coming to our countries? Why is all this stuff happening? And so, unfortunately, the people that are supporting Trump and stuff, I think they've got legitimate concerns, but their answers are a little bit off base. They're misguided because we've talked about this at great length on the show. The entire issue with immigration, the entire issue with refugee crises, these are all stemming from policies that our own governments are putting out there. And so they're self-fulfilling prophecies. You know what I mean? We create the problem.
Yeah. I mean, you create this completely unlivable environment through your policy of scorched earth to acquire resources and for geopolitical gain. I mean, that's as simple as it is. You have really 3 empires in the world, and basically the 2 of them together might not be able to beat the 3rd, but there is that constant kind of push and pull. And it is Orwell's 1984, where he had the tri-power. I mean, it's the way to make it work. It's the way you plan back and forth. The U.S. is weak now. China's on the rise. And Russia, they have the most nukes. And so there's all this parity. And it's all just a big play. The same kind of people, I guarantee you, Putin and all the Chinese guys and all of our top people are all, they're all in the same club, man. They really are. I mean, if nukes start flying, they're all going to go underground together into a little bunker and have a party. I mean, that's really how it seems to me. I mean, I don't see a big difference between the 3 empires of the world, China, Russia, and the U.S. I really don't.
So there's some encouraging signs, though, man. People around the world are kind of rising up, whether it's the right-wingers or the left-wingers. People are fed up, man. People are ready to take on the system in the United States, in France, in Europe, all over the place. I mean, it's very encouraging to see people out there ready to challenge what's going on, whether their solutions are correct or whether they're a little misguided. I think that's not as much of the point. It's that there are people out there knowing something is off, something is wrong, and they're ready to fight for it. And it's going on everywhere. And it's going on here in the U.S., and it's...
For the U.S., it's simple. It's like the millennials just are looking at not having as good of a life as the boomers, which makes no sense because technology is so much better. And it's going to be getting way better with robots. Robots are supposed to be able to free us from labor and from mundane tasks. And instead, what the elite are going to try to do is, make it so that they're too expensive for us to get them. And imagine if you had a robot to do all your chores all day. Dude, what could you do with 3 extra hours a day, free time? I mean, imagine the productivity, but of course they don't want their slaves to be, free of those things to keep them occupied. So we're going to have to come to a point where we're going to have to demand, open source, demand, Maslow's laws in such that we all have basic incomes, because otherwise these guys are going to phase us out economically. And we're going to actually buy into it. You hear people today say, well, I don't really support the fight for 15 because my labor is not worth 15. Have some self-esteem. I mean, if you show up at a job and do a job, why should you struggle? Why should you be in poverty at all? It doesn't make any sense. There's so much wealth in the whole world, and it's just being, siphoned up to the top. People need to understand that.
Yeah, and if you account for, inflation and all this money printing at the Fed, dude. I mean, if you look back at when we had sound money back at the turn of the decade from the 60s to 70s, minimum wage was 25 cents, and if you converted that to what the money's worth now, it's $25.
Yeah.
I mean, minimum wage back then, what minimum wage was in 1970 would equal $25 right now.
Yeah.
And we wouldn't necessarily need a minimum wage if we actually had a legitimate monetary system, but we don't.
Yeah.
We got the Federal Reserve dictating, bailing out banks, printing trillions of dollars, quantitative easing, creating bubbles.
And the worst part about the Federal Reserve is what a lot of people don't really realize is that because they're this Ponzi scheme printing press, right, where nothing's backing it except an IOU, all the countries in the world actually print U.S. dollars that are counterfeit all the time and devalue us all the time just by policy. Like, one of the biggest things about North Korea is they're that good that they can pretty much just print up dollars and throw them on the market and buy all this crazy shit and devalue our economy. A lot of people don't know that, and the Federal Reserve opens us up to that because nothing backs our paper.
On the subject of the Fed, a lot of people don't know. And this is actually a story we covered yesterday on the Anti-Media. We aggregated it from Zero Hedge. And this is a quote from a former advisor, Ben Bernanke, the infamous helicopter man who, was responsible for orchestrating the bailout of 2009 and quantitative easing and printing probably the single most money of any administration ever under I think he was actually appointed under Bush, and then he continued under Obama, right? Is that right?
He did, yeah.
Yeah, so he started out under Bush, and Obama didn't get rid of him. Obama kept him on. One of his former advisors came out just this week, and here's what he said. A lot of people would be stunned to know the extent to which the Fed is privately owned. This guy's like, yeah, guys, the Federal Reserve, and the image that we used on the article is something that S.M. Gibson actually made. Did you know the Federal Reserve is about as federal as FedEx, Federal Express? Right. It's a private entity. It's a big private corporation. It's owned by the banking cartels. It's owned by the banking families. And they dictate our monetary policy.
But also the Vatican and the Royal Crown of England own 1/3 each. So it's 1/3 of those, and then it goes to the banking families, like you said, which are international, by the way, and there is one Chinese one. And they take the other 1/3, and then only 10% of it actually goes back to do anything here. And it almost all goes to the military. So, you're talking about a printing press that leeches your labor away from you every single year with inflation. And there's nothing you can do about it unless we go to a barter-type system. I guess that's why agorism is starting to become more popular as a political ideology, because we can kind of circumvent these corporations and the money itself and kind of do things on your own. If you can grow enough food, you're free, right? You can make enough power with solar panels and such, you're free. What are they going to do? Maybe eminent domain you, but whatever. You can get off of this grid type system.
Yeah, and the IRS is more or less like a collection agency for the Fed. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And the Fed, the United States was initially founded upon the idea of sound money. Is something that libertarians rail on all the time. It's the money is backed by tangible assets, silver, gold, and stuff like that. And then you can take that paper money and you can go to the bank and you can turn it in and change it out for gold or silver because it's actually backed by something. Now, thanks to the Federal Reserve Act of 1913 and then Nixon closing the gold window, which completely detached our monetary system from anything tangible. Now our money is literally only backed by what's known as the petrodollar, and it's only backed by weapons. It's backed by our big, giant military budget that goes and bombs any country like Libya, for instance.
And Saudi Arabia.
And by oil. And so any country that's you know what, maybe we don't want to be part of this U.S. hegemonic monetary policy. We want to start trading in, for instance, in Libya, Gaddafi was proposing an African dinar, which would be an Africa-wide gold-backed currency. And sure enough, just shortly after he did that and made that announcement or decided he was going to do that, well, guess what? All of a sudden it's oh, dude, you're a bad government. We got to go overthrow your government. Hillary Clinton was right there cheering it on. Hillary Clinton, now we find out later on, and it's funny because Obama actually just recently was yeah, my biggest mistake has been, not doing enough with Libya, and, we overthrew the government, but we didn't think about, anything that was going to go on after that. Well, there's a reason why, because Hillary Clinton come to find out, within a year, like, yeah, dude, let's just bomb Libya, and like, even if we have no contingency plans for after, like, let's just overthrow that government and just see where the chips fall, you know. And this is the ideology that Hillary Clinton, you know, lives by, and she's even professed her, you know, idolization, I don't know what to call it, with Henry Kissinger, who has been notoriously brutal and has backed these kind of things.
And you know, a lot of, like, one thing I've learned from reading like Freakonomics and stuff is to try to figure out any ulterior motives for like what a war might be, why it's about. And if you look at what happened with Libya, their oil production's really slowed to a crawl, you know. And guess what that does for Saudi Arabia?
Jacks up the price.
Exactly. So Saudi Arabia had a lot to gain from the fall of Gaddafi, and you can bet that they were basically the reason for that to happen. Now, what has happened as a result is Libya has basically stopped powering Italy and Spain and a lot of those type of countries right on the Mediterranean that relied on their oil supply, and they started buying from Saudi Arabia. Because Saudi Arabia is really the only country in the world, except maybe Venezuela, that could just ramp up production if they have to. So it's a Freakonomics thing too, man. It's kind of crazy that way. Like, we're such Saudi Arabia's lapdog in the fact that we need their oil to keep our war machine going that we probably overthrew Libya for them. Like,
yeah,
seriously.
and the difference between Libya and Syria is pretty simple. Russia had no strategic interest in Libya. No other country had much of a strategic interest. China didn't have a strategic interest. The only people that did was NATO members. Italy, France, Great Britain, the United States. They had an agenda going on. They want to protect the petrodollar. They want to keep their hegemonic monetary system going. So they all said, you know what? Yeah, let's just go toss that government out.
Yep.
And who cares about what happens after? And, you know, what's happened after is part of the reason why I'm so against Hillary Clinton, because they went in there and overthrew a government without having anything in mind afterwards, and now it's resulted in the death. And this is a very conservative estimate of 50,000 innocent people in Libya. 50,000 people are dead because of what Hillary Clinton, Barack Obama, who was being advised by Hillary Clinton, and who knows who Hillary Clinton was being advised by, I don't know, Henry Kissinger, and all these other NATO asshats that decided to go do that. They did it, and then they let the country fall into ruins. I mean, Libya had the highest standard of living before we did what we did over there, and now that country is in the midst of a brutal civil war that has literally, there's no sign of any progress. It's not just two sides. In Libya, there's like over a dozen different sides that are fighting each other to try to control the place. I mean, it's crazy.
One of the most sickening things that happened as a result of the fall of Libya was that the native-born black Libyan population was basically completely genocided and wiped out.
Yeah, they were massacred.
The reason why is something people don't kind of normally think of, because when they wanted to oust Gaddafi, basically they had to use, you know, African mercenaries, who were all a bunch of, you know, like black guys, obviously. And so what happened was, as a result, the Libyan government itself said, kill all of the black population, because we don't know who is a mercenary and who is not. And they wiped them all out. You can even look it up. They wiped them out with air attacks, killed basically all of them, or made all of them flee. And that's just another side effect, dude, that people don't even get.
Yeah, and the other end of it, too, is that Gaddafi had a legacy of a very strong legacy of actually protecting the black population in Libya. And
which is strange.
Yeah, and the other thing was, and here's where Hillary Clinton also comes back into this, is that she more or less found out that some of the rebels were committing a genocide against some of these black Libyans, and she turned the other way and continued to aid them. She continued sending them weapons and allowed that to happen. And I mean, this came from the email revelations, and everyone's like,
Everyone's in Syria right now.
This is part of my April Fool's article. Everyone's talking about, oh my God, Hillary broke the law by, you know, sending these emails on an unsecure server. I'm more concerned about the bigger crimes here. I'm talking about genocide and war crime. Like, this is shit that she should be like put on trial and given a death sentence for. But you know, this stuff happened in Libya, and a lot of the rebels, because they knew that Gaddafi was very, very favorable towards the black population, the rebels were like, you know what, we gotta just kill off all the black people in Libya because they're all probably loyal to Gaddafi.
Exactly.
You know, and
well, not even that. It was actually Gaddafi killing them because he said they were all mercenaries
It was both.
Well, yeah, it was just a messed up situation.
We created a very bad situation.
Well, Syria's the same, like, you know how they're going to just keep piling weapons in there now.
Yeah, now they're sending more weapons in. They're putting more people into Iraq. Our defense secretary has been saying that they're just going to ramp up the war in Iraq as quickly as possible. The difference between Syria and Libya is that Russia is there because they have geopolitical interests in Syria and they're propping up the government. So it's a much more clear situation. It's a clear proxy war between Russia and between Western interests. Russia wants to keep the Syrian government in place. Yep. Western interests want to topple the Syrian government. Much more clear situation. In Libya, Gaddafi didn't have any allies, really.
Right.
Besides African countries, and African countries don't have much geopolitical power.
Well, he had an ally in Egypt, and look at what they did. They made sure to destabilize them because you can never defeat Egypt's military in that area. I mean, even Israel said that we couldn't really defeat them without going nuclear. And so what they did, man, was they just made sure to destabilize them and distract them so they couldn't back us up. Couldn't back Libya up.
Yeah, dude, exactly. And so, it's turned into a big quagmire over there in Libya and Syria both, and all over the Middle East, where we've gone in there and we've played kingmaker in all these countries and decided, okay, well, this government needs to go, or this government needs to stay. I mean, if you look back at the Arab Spring, and this is part of the article here that I was bringing up, and anyone that hasn't read it yet, I definitely recommend it. It's called "Do Ongoing Global Events Prove the World is Ready for Revolution?" It's over on the antimedia.org. It's our top story of the day. It's intertwined with Charlie Chaplin's great dictator speech and all that stuff. Great read. I wish it would have gotten more attention on social media. But, you're right, man. I mean, they destabilize all these countries. They play kingmaker. They choose which government's going to stay, which government's going to go. The Arab Spring, I mean, Tunisia set it off with the guy that burned himself to death because he was tired of the government abusing him and being corrupt. And then it triggered a bunch of actions during the Arab Spring, the United States played a very hypocritical role. In Libya, we said, it's not right that Gaddafi is putting down these protesters, so we're going to go overthrow his government. In Saudi Arabia and Qatar, in the countries that are our allies, we gave them the weaponry to put down the protests. You know what I'm saying? And so there's literally zero consistency with the principles here. If our government is going to go around saying that they're going to support democratic movements and they only want to support countries that are democratic, that's fine, but at least be consistent. Don't support dictatorships that are putting down democratic movements and killing people in the streets, arresting people for writing poems about peace and love, and lashing them in the streets, while at the same time saying, oh, we can't stand for Gaddafi putting down protests, we can't stand for Assad putting down protests, and there's zero accountability, zero consistency there, and so, this Arab Spring thing, which, kicked off a while back, what was it, 2011, in Tunisia, but it's kind of still ongoing. And that's why we have our next guest on the show to talk about the democracy spring in the United States, because it's kind of along the same vein. It's people standing up to corruption. It's people saying, you know what, enough is enough. We're done with this corruption. Eleanor Goldfield, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Hey, how's it going?
It's good. How are you guys?
Really, really good. Thanks for joining us. Eleanor is an awesome activist and journalist and artist who has it's like a video series called Act Out. And we uploaded one of your videos the other day. I think it got 30,000 views or something. It did really well. But anyway, you're out there. Are you still out in DC?
Yeah. I'm in DC nowadays to cover things like this, like the Democracy Spring that you just mentioned. And I will say, however, that there's we're not quite at the Arab Spring part yet, because this is not. I think the important part here, and what I've been hearing from organizers as well on the ground, is that this is not really about overthrowing a government. This is about proving to government that we the people have had enough, and we the people are willing to put our bodies on the line and risk arrest in order to demand that money be ejected from politics in the current state that it's in. So Like you said, there are some similarities, and I think that's probably why they named it Democracy Spring. But I think we're still on this side of the pond. We're still trying to create a less painful and a less bloody transition of power.
Yeah, and that's, it's pretty, it's a logical step because, we got to keep in mind that the United States government is at the helm of the single largest military in the world. I mean, we've got probably the biggest police force in the world and definitely the most brutal.
And the most private gun owners in the world, too, which is just an insane combo, right?
Makes for a very interesting dynamic. And so I saw a couple of your videos, and you've been covering this Democracy Spring that's been going on in Washington, D.C. for the last several days, and it's been notoriously getting very little mainstream media coverage. In fact, the stories that we covered this week on the anti-media was actually about how the media is not covering this protest, and in the article made an interesting point about how the protest is really, the Democracy Spring is going it's going against the corporate influence within government and just the corporate overriding of the entire American lifestyle, I guess you could call it. And I guess it's not a coincidence that the media is not covering it, because the media is all part of that. The mainstream media is part of that system. I mean, 6 news conglomerates own 90% of the media and stuff like that. So I guess people just really aren't, people that are counting on the corporate media to give them the news that should be talked about just aren't receiving this message. So, Eleanor, if you can you tell us just the basics? What is this Democracy Spring about? What has gone on, and what should people know about it?
So basically, and yeah, basically what you said is that the corporatized media, the propagandized media, is not going to be covering this. And actually, there was a Rolling Stone article that I completely that made me incredibly angry today that came out saying that this was a pro-Bernie movement, and that's just completely wrong, because basically what it's doing is it's belittling the movement and saying that it's about one single politician, which is of course the antithesis of what this is about. This action
I saw other headlines too that said that it was about, literally the headline said it's about voting issues. That's literally all the headline said.
Yeah, and I mean even that though is somewhat correct, because one of the bills that they're pushing is the Voting Rights Advancement Act. But saying that it's a pro-Bernie movement, and we can talk about, I mean, the issue of Bernie is a separate issue, but that's just the point. This speaks to the idea that we put our faith in this idea of a savior that can come along every 4 years and save our republic, and that's just completely wrong. And it supports the idea that we can just sit back and not do anything as citizens, and that's absolutely not what this movement is about. This movement and this action is about putting the power where it should rest in this form of government, and that's in the people. And so this is asserting the people's power by literally putting yourself on the front lines by either sitting in and risking arrest or supporting those that are sitting in and risking arrest. And so the systemic goals are these 4 bills that are before Congress at the moment. But of course the larger issue is to continue to push this agenda of getting money out of politics, because as Marianne Williamson said, and many others have put it other ways, this is the cancer underlying all cancers. You can't talk about climate change, you can't talk about Black Lives Matter, the prison-industrial complex, the military-industrial complex, women's rights. You can't talk about any of this until you get that money out of the way, because these moneyed interests won't allow you to discuss these issues in the type of government that we are supposed to have. So that is the core concept of this movement, and that's what people have been pushing in the past few days that this has gone on, and will continue for the rest of the week.
That's awesome. I mean, essentially, it's like to overthrow the oligarchy, right? I mean,
yeah, exactly.
Unfortunately, what the United States has become. I had an article out yesterday that fortunately went really viral. But the quote I used to lead into this article was from former President Jimmy Carter, and what he recently said in I don't know, it was 2015 or 2016. This is what Jimmy Carter said, and he's a former U.S. president. Now it's just an oligarchy with unlimited political bribery being the essence of getting the nominations for president or to elect the president. And the same thing applies to governors and U.S. senators and Congress members. I mean, that's the only. I cut the quote short, but I mean that's the essence of it. Is the United States has become an oligarchy where moneyed interests basically control almost all policy decisions. Every once in a while, they throw us a bone and they'll legalize cannabis here and there, and they'll do a few things that are nice to keep people like kind of in their seat. But overall, I mean, studies have shown the United States has become an oligarchy. I mean, the overwhelmingly the policies that are passed, the laws that are put in place, are in place because moneyed interests lobbied the government to put those laws in place, and it benefits them in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've gone one step further in my show, and I've said that it's not only an oligarchy, it's a plutocracy, which is a plutocracy is ruled by the wealthy. And so an oligarchy is, of course, ruled by a small number of elite people. So it's really the combination of those two. It's a pseudo-garchy or whatever combination you want to call it. It is a rule by a small number of wealthy people, like the 0.1% really hold the reins of this country, and that is the red thread between every single movement. And I think the Democracy Spring has done a great job of tying these things together because each day has a sort of theme to it. There's a climate justice day, there's a racial justice day, there's a labor union day. So each one of these days, even though it's under the umbrella of getting money out of politics, each day has a sort of theme where a smaller focus under this broader focus is to point out that issue which is couched underneath the issue of money in politics so that people can sort of get a more personal connection to this, because oftentimes the Get Money Out movement has had the problem of coming across as obtuse and abstract. So by connecting it to these issues that people feel very strongly and passionately about, people begin to understand that this is connected to everything from GMOs to abortion rights. So it really, I think Democracy Spring has done a really good job of making those connections as well.
Eleanor, do you think that it's still a good thing to keep money in politics on a micro level, though, as far as personal people making, monetary donations, or do you want to see all money phased out?
I mean, the utopian ideal is, of course, that money would play no role whatsoever, and I understand that side of the argument. I do, however, think that, these small donations that we see with, people like Jill Stein, for example, they do help, even in a system, even if we were to imagine a system where money didn't hold as much sway, you still need to pay a PR person, because that's their job, or you need to pay, to print out flyers. So I still understand the idea of having money be necessary on some level, but I do think that to the extent that it's become necessary just to have your name on a ballot is vehemently unacceptable. So yeah, in a utopian situation where we all just can sit around and talk about, our compost heaps and our tiny houses, then no, money would play no role whatsoever. But in reality, I think that it would, even if we can get to the point where we want to get, it would still play a role, but a far lesser one.
Wouldn't it be nice if we lived in a utopia, but we don't.
Our children.
Not yet. Hey, at least, unfortunately, in some aspects, we're living in a dystopia, which is not good. And that's why movements like the Democracy Spring can help us bring us back to this neutral level. At least we're not in a dystopian where it's like, oh my shit, corporations are controlling everything. Eleanor, we've got a really packed show tonight, so we're going to have to let you go. But before you do, can you quickly tell us first how people can get involved with the Democracy Spring, and then where people can find your work at?
Yeah, absolutely. So Democracy Spring is going through till at least this weekend, and Democracy Awakening is a partner action that's happening as well. So Democracy Spring is democracyspring.org. And echoing the interview that I had with Kai Newkirk, who's the organizer for that, they want everybody to try to get to D.C. because that's where it's happening right now. Democracy Awakening is democracyawakening.org, and my show is called Act Out, and you can check that out on Facebook at facebook.com/actout on Occupy, and we have a bunch of videos from the past and images from the past few days.
Awesome. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for giving us this update on the Democracy Spring. Hopefully anyone out in the area, anyone around the country can also support it digitally, virtually, whatever you want to call it. Eleanor, thanks again for calling in. And
Yeah, absolutely.
we've got a awesome band that we're going to be showcasing tonight that is giving us some, like, I don't know how to call it.
A teaser?
Yeah, a teaser. It's kind of like a preview. We're exclusively airing this on the Anti-Media Radio tonight. And then we're going to have the guys from the band on to talk a little bit about the song, their band, and their message, because it's definitely politically charged and, in my opinion, a very good way. So first off, let me give a little preview of this song. I'm not able to play the whole thing. It's going to be out in full very soon, and we're going to be probably having an article on the Anti-Media actually showcasing the song as well as soon as it comes out. We did that awesome piece just a couple weeks ago from Nick Cannon, and when we discovered this the video, it only had like 5,000 views. The last time I checked, it had like 250,000. So I mean, that's kind of a good thing if we can really get this politically charged artistic stuff going viral. I mean, this is really good. So I got this song. It's called Statism by a band called BackWordz, and I'm going to showcase it here, and then we're going to talk a little bit to the guys from the band. So enjoy this preview. I'm not able to play the whole thing, but go ahead and check it out.
I'm living with the gimmick and wins from beginning to end. No gimmick if I rap it, dude, I live it then. And you can't do it, so ain't no need for mimicking. I'm not innocent, I'm on a mission, so let me finish it. Matter of time before they summon the army in. I'm probably on the FBI's most wanted list. I'm probably going to own like an ornament. I'm on a life mission to a pawn shop. I'm coming back. So we gon' cut to the chase and get rid of metaphorical nonsense. None of that eloquent focusness. Our voices in what it is. So the kids, y'all
All right, sorry, that's enough. I can't play the whole thing. We agreed with the guys from the band that we're not going to showcase the whole thing. But like I said, once the song is released in full, we're going to be showcasing it on the antimedia.org, and we're going to have a big piece on it and stuff. But I believe we're joined now from the guys from BackWordz, Eric and Alex. What's up? You guys on the line?
Yeah, we here. Yeah. You hear it?
Awesome. Yeah, we got you. So this song is called Statism, right?
Absolutely. Yes, sir.
And so, I guess statism is a word I'm very familiar with. I know my co-host DB is familiar with, but maybe some of the people out there listening tonight aren't familiar with. First of all, tell us what you guys think. Like, what actually does statism mean?
Well, it is a term that definitely amongst like just people in general, really anti-government folks, they throw it out there. I mean, when I think statism, I try to be somewhat fair in its use, but I like to kind of look at it as obviously like one of the most, not one of the most, probably the most dangerous, religion that is out there. So I mean, it's people actually out here worshiping this monopoly on violence and use of force, and they think that this has to exist in order for it to, in order for us to be a civilized society. This monopoly on violence just has to exist. So when I think statism and when I think of status, I think people that advocate for this said actual setup. Yeah.
The monopoly on violence, man. And that's the issue that we're dealing with here. I was having a conversation with my friend earlier today about, how these kind of political ideologies, economic ideologies become, they start off as one thing because, most of these ideologies, whether we're talking about capitalism, socialism, communism, fascism, I mean, they're all things that have some things that could actually help people out, and that's why they exist, because there are things that are, can be made positively of them. But the problems started rising when they become state level, right? It's like state socialism, state capitalism, state communism. It's like, that's when it gets distorted and it gets pushed down everyone's throat. It becomes monopolized, and then anyone not agreeing with it, and that's the case in many countries, like in the United States. It's a state state capitalistic society where, you know, everybody is stuck in this system and half the people disagree. And then you got a place like China where it's a state communist system where it's like the people have to be repressed to be forced under it, you know. And that's, to me, is like,
Right.
you know, this is where we run into these problems. Like these ideologies at a philosophical level, they have plenty of, you know, usable things, and they can be used in a good way. Socialism, capitalism, I mean, they all have things that are decent that can be used to improve the human experience, but then they become state-run, and then it's like, oh shit, yeah, maybe it's not such a good idea.
Absolutely.
But tell us about this song. I mean, why? What compelled you guys to put this out? Like, what's the whole meaning of it?
Well, I mean, for a quick backstory, I mean, BackWordz, we've only been a band for maybe a year or so. I believe we released our first single, Grind Song, last year in January. And it was all a process. I mean, we had all left touring, signed acts, and we really wanted to do this the right way. And we did kind of drop our first couple of songs just to let everybody know that, you know, we're out here and, you know, we gained that fan base. But we pretty much decided we're going to do our debut album. We're going to self-release it. We've had so many different record labels and whatnot reach out to us, denied them all, because we really think that, you know, we have, obviously we're on to something, but definitely the message of liberty and the message of, you know, just free people, it's not really infiltrated to the degree that I would necessarily like it to be in entertainment. I feel like if we can, as artists or just entertainment in general, we're able to infiltrate that with our message, we're going to really get the ground moving, get the ball moving, and we're going to hit the ground running once we kind of infiltrated entertainment. So we dropped our first 3 singles. Our third one was really the first one that really was, full-blown politics. And then we came out with, you know, with statism. Me and Alex, you know, we're like, look, man, like, we're not holding no punches anymore. We already got the fan base, so they either gonna like us or love us, either you know, hate us, either way it goes. So let's we're not holding no punch. So from the image, it's I can't wait for people to see the music video. We have a huge guest vocalist that is on this song as well. That we're not going to tell them quite yet who it is, but people are going to see that. And for him to be a part of it, that was a glorious thing. But from the image, the music video, you see, if people saw the teaser, they see us all rocking like different types of, you know, the colors that represent different styles of anarchy. You know, myself rocking the anarcho-capitalist, and you know, he was representing Alex representing algorithm, and you know, we had mutualists, we were transhumanists, we had all of that representation. And we're going to obviously explain that, because I talk to a lot of guys and they really don't know what this means. When people hear the word anarchy, they think chaos and things like that. They really don't know what it is. So that's really our goal, is definitely from the liberties perspective, because, you know, me and Alex are more so ANCAP, but just to let people know and get people thinking, you know, anarchy is not exactly what you think it is. And really everything that you feel would happen minus the government has happened under the government, and has happened, honestly, under your current government, which, again, all states have this monopoly on violence.
Yeah, man, it's the shit the empire has pulled off, and empires in the past. I mean, we can invoke the Romans, the French, the Persian Empire, the Greek empires. I mean, they've all been done under the guise of statism, more or less, you know, and they pulled off great feats. They pulled off mass genocide. They pulled off enslavement. They pulled off major wars, world wars. I mean, all of this stuff has been done thanks to statism. And as you said, it's the most dangerous religion out there. I think Catholicism probably comes second place there. But Catholicism is pretty bad too. But, you know, statism is, you know, it is the most dangerous religion. The world wars were fought not over religion. They were fought over states warring with each other and trying to impose their beliefs, whether it's the Nazis or whether it's the U.S. supposedly imposing freedom on Vietnam or Iraq. And, you know, we all know that stuff's just a big farce. You know, it's not even true. What you were saying, though, about using this kind of, I wouldn't want to call it pop culture, but entertainment media to infiltrate the mainstream culture here, it reminds me of this great quote, and I don't know who to attribute this to. I've just seen it on like a million memes. But it says, beware of artists. They mix with all classes of society and are therefore the most dangerous. And that's exactly kind of what your music reminds me of, is that it's a way to use this music that a lot of people can identify with as a vehicle to spread a message that is about peace and about freedom. So tell us a little bit more about your band and about, what you guys have planned going forward, and, anything else you guys want to get out there to our audience. We've only got about 5 minutes left, so, the floor.
Yeah. Absolutely. Go ahead, Alex.
Yeah, really, he kind of touched on this with talking about our song Utopia. The third single we let out was kind of dipping your foot in the pool, We didn't really come out too hard of a punch with that song as far as politics go. And one thing Eric and I definitely agreed on with this next song coming up and the album that we're planning to release later this year was really just not real holding any punches when it comes to the political side of things. And, of course, not every song is going to be just politics 100% all the time, but that ultimately is the goal of the band. We're all like-minded in the message that we're trying to portray. And media just, art just happens to be the medium we're using to get our message across.
Absolutely. To touch on that, that's what it's all about with me. I've had, I've been a whole lot of different things as a political commentator and things. And it's funny how, talking to that crowd, I've do obviously a lot of writing with being libertarian Republic and things like that. I've showed up on the Blaze. I've had an opportunity to be on Fox News and talk about minimum wage and things like that. And that's cool, but I feel like entertainment is really that message, because I feel like people get a lot of things twisted when we start talking about definitely the things that we bring up, our messages of really liberty. Our messages of, that's what we are. We're for the most part ANCAPs, and we want to spread the message of not just, anarcho-capitalism or anything like that, but more so just the idea of liberty, the idea of freedom, that you do not need this monopoly on violence to exist in order for you guys to be free. But also, it's very easy, for me to get on a song and say, screw the cops and all of that. And that's not what I'm about. I can do that. I'm not saying I'm for the cops or anything like that. I'm saying I would rather break it down for you and tell you why the existence of this monopoly illegitimate, and really break that down for everybody to really understand, because that's too easy. I can find 40 other bands that are saying screw the cops, but these same 40 bands might go and they're going to turn around and vote for full ticket statism, vote for expanding the state, so it's a little different. I just want to break it down. Because like you said, we got all these different terms that are thrown around. People usually don't know what the hell they mean. When we talk about communism, when we talk about capitalism and things like that, people just use these terms for things they dislike. You know what I mean? So I want to really break this stuff down for them and really just get that message out there, man. That statism, everything that they feared that could happen or would happen with minus the government has happened to a much massive scale than it ever could happen. Minus an actual government, has happened under government. That's what we want to spread.
We gotta reverse the connotations. I think people should start looking positively at anarchism and looking negatively at statism. That's the tough thing.
Right.
He'll climb when talking about anarchy. It comes with a negative stigmatization that is already existing for a long time. Everyone thinks it's, like you said, they think it's chaos, think it's bad shit. We're coming to the end here. We only got a minute left. Quickly, can you tell everyone in our audience where they can find your guys' work? And then, like I said, we're going to be showcasing this song on the Anti-Media as soon as it comes out. So only got about 40 seconds left. Go ahead.
Absolutely. We're everywhere. BackWordz is BackWordz. You can Twitter.com/BackWordzMusic, Facebook.com/BackWordzMusic, as well as Instagram. Singles called Statism. It'll be premiering through Loudwire next week. We'll get you guys an actual, release date, but just stay tuned. Look out for us on Facebook. We'll be on all the mediums. You can check us out.
Awesome, man. And then once the song comes out, we'll be playing it in full here on the Anti-Media Radio. Super thankful that you guys are out there spreading the message. We need more and more conscious musicians, and we're here on the Anti-Media Radio. We're trying to get to the point where every single show we're going to be showcasing a new musician that's got a message out there that is not just some bullshit pop culture consumerism bullshit that's like, hey, buy this,
Right.
Do this and do that. We're trying to spread messages, freedom, liberty, peace. You know what I'm saying? I mean, this is what we're...
Right.
Thank you guys for calling us. Thank you guys for joining the show. DB, thanks for coming down to the studio here in San Diego. Thank you everyone for listening.
Let them know through the stereo. Yo, here we go through the stereo.